Lamps had lost their appeal to him. Not unless the coyotes approached too closely or the storm was severe. There was just enough light from the hearth to create shadows on the old ranch house's walls, and that was all Ridge and Cash required. He had been here for almost 7 years longer than most people in the town could recall. People now refer to it as the Ridge Place, or the ancient spread with the porch that leans. However, it was silent to him, and silence at least wasn't deceiving. Cashin kept a coffee can full of extra nails, a rifle close to the entrance, and a Bible on the mantel that he never opened. He didn't say as much as the wind did. Since the woman he almost married left him for the banker's son in Dawson Creek, there was no one to listen anyhow. Although the pain didn't hurt as much as it once did, it left him hollow in spots that the wind liked to haunt. He slept next to the fire and ate from tin plates. He didn't have the heart to let it out, even though there was a bed upstairs that still smelt like betrayal. Snow started to fall that night, as crisp and fine as sifted sugar. It hazed the sky into a gentle gray and powdered the old oak fence posts. While repairing a saddle by the fireplace, Cashin heard a distant but urgent horse's call, followed by the distinct stumbling of hoofs battling snowdrift. With joints that cracked like old pine, he stood slowly and reached for the rifle without urgency. Whatever was coming up the hill was genuine, since ghosts didn't ride horses. As he approached the window, he noticed two individuals leaning heavily on each other, both dressed in black skins. Just as they arrived at the porch, a blast of wind pushed snow against the house. He waited a little more, seeing one figure sag forward as though her knees were about to buckle as they rested on the post. The other one lifted her chin and gave a knock. Without saying anything, he opened the door. The cold pushed past him like a live creature. Two drenched and shrouded Comanche women stood there, panting heavily as though they had traveled a great distance quickly. With the strength of someone who had led others before, the older one, tall with eyes like riverstone, split lips and wounded cheek, met his stare. The younger one's features were softer, her arms were smaller, and her eyes were filled with a silent anxiety that caused Cashin's chest to constrict uncontrollably. They remained silent, not quite yet, he didn't either. However, he moved aside. They went inside, the fire broke out. They dragged on the flooring as wet snow slipped off their cloaks. The older girl stood, albeit hesitantly, while the younger girl lowered herself to her knees before the fire without looking up. Cashin finally responded, "I got beans and jerky," in a tired voice. The older woman declared, "We won't stay. We only need to warm up before continuing." He looked beyond them and remarked, "You got no horse. Hardly have boots." "Our pony's leg broke. Since the morning we have been walking." She spoke in a steady but gentle accent. "She is my sister." He said, "I'm not asking questions. Take a seat." "Fire is good." She sat slowly after hesitating, as if each bone in her body had earned its pains. He produced the beans and gave each person a hot, but not strong, cup of coffee. There was no sharing of names. There was nothing unpleasant about their silence. It was the kind that comes from folks who have seen enough to understand that words alone won't solve many problems. Outside, the wind howled. The fire inside spoke alone. He would later find out that the girl, Tiva, observed the flames as if they were whispering her mother's words. Aooka, the older one, kept looking out the window as though she thought someone would come and take her back. Softer this time, she murmured, "We'll leave at first light." He spread out 2 blankets thick buffalo hides. He hadn't used since his brother's last visit near the fireplace without responding. It was still asleep and breathing slowly under the covers when he woke up the following morning. He simply went outside, axe in hand, and began cutting wood without waking them. The snow continued to fall. The drifts were higher, if anything. They were there for 3 days. Tiva used Grace and Grace to fix a damaged saddle cinch. After examining the barn and determining that it was deficient, Aooka began digging out the rod herself. "If I can't work, I'm not useful," she remarked, looking proudly at Cashin when he offered to help. He made no argument. However, he left a pair of folded, dried socks close to her bedroom that evening. She wore them, but she didn't thank him. Though their stares lasted longer, their talk was brief and largely focused on chores or the location of the storm line, accidental hand contact that lingered for an excessive amount of time. Kashin started leaving the door unlatched at evening, and tea started to hum as she worked. Aoka saw the snow turn to golden light when the sun rose on the fourth day while she waited by the window. "Have you ever considered leaving this place?" she inquired. His rifle was being cleaned. He didn't raise his head. "It used to. Why don't you?" Grew weary of holding out hope for improvement. "Waited somewhere else." She gave a slow nod. "According to my people, the land claims anybody it desires. Perhaps you were taken by it." "I knew it did." They heard hoofs once more later that morning, but this time they weren't exhausted or stumbling. It was the steady cadence of experienced bikers. When Kashin went outdoors, he noticed them. From a ridge trail, 5 Comanche warriors rode in. Their leader had mistrust in his eyes and silver at his belt. Before he could, Ioka moved forward. She answered, "These are my kin." They arrived in search. The men got off their horses. One, taller, thin, with a jaw like stone and prominent cheekbones, stood in front of Ayoka and walked past Kashin as if he were a fence post. He asked her in a hurried voice, "You stayed here?" "With him, we were powerless." He gave Kashin a startled look. "He provided us with food, not much more." Tiva was shaking as she stood next to her sister. Her fingertips flicked near the hem of Kashin's coat before stopping. "I protected your women," Kashin stated, "that's all." The leader gave him a serious look. "My relative has a strong sense of pride. If people insult her name," Kashin said, "she would already be gone. I would never touch a woman who didn't want it." Like a living thing, the wind blew between them. At last, the leader gave a single nod. He told Aoka to come home. "Well, talk more there." She didn't make an argument, but she stopped and glanced back as she turned to ride one of their ponies. When the fire was still burning, she said in Comanche, "I'll be back." Then she vanished. They disappeared into the ridge, and Kashin remained motionless. For a while, he simply watched the tracks gradually fill with fresh snow while standing on the porch with one hand grasping the rail. He lighted the fire that night despite leaving both blankets close to the fireplace. Weeks went by. The land's margins were tickled by spring. Ice that had melted trickled from the eaves. Out of habit rather than hope, Kashin repaired fences and sowed a few seeds. When the silence came back, it sounded different, as if someone might disturb it at any moment. Then she did. Before he saw her, he heard her. From the trail came a faint whistle. When he emerged, he saw her walking as if she had traveled 100 miles in a yoke cloaked in a wolfkin. And there was no pain. She didn't grin. He didn't either. He did, however, open the door. She went in. He placed a second mug close to the fire. Although they didn't talk much that evening, her presence permeated the house like cedar smoke. She fixed the ancient loom in the attic and assisted him in hanging a new barn door. She didn't go, but he didn't inquire if she was staying. She cut her hand on flint one morning while they were stacking stones to border a garden. He took a wrist and gently bandaged it. He whispered, "You always bleed when fixing things." She gave him a look. "You do too." He kept her hand a bit longer than was necessary. "Remain," he said. "It's not that I saved you. Rather, it's that I don't want to continue saving myself." She didn't respond verbally. However, she relocated her bedroll to the upstairs room the following day, with simply her hand in his, her forehead resting against his chest, and Ta playing a wooden flute in the background. They were married as the apple tree blossomed out back without a preacher or choir. Although some people spoke, the ranch turned green once more. Additionally, Kashin lighted a lamp every evening because he knew someone would be entering through the door, not because he had to. You never know which storm might bring someone home or which knock will alter your entire life. Those who remain silent the longest might sometimes have the deepest affection. And occasionally, the hands that caress the most desolate spot transform it into a hallowed space, not because of walls or roofs. Keep your fire burning, even if it's only a little bit. Right now, someone might be approaching your light. Tell me where you're looking from in this vast, ancient globe before you leave. Put your nation or city in the comments section. I'm fascinated by the reach of these Wild West tales. Leave a comment for a yoka or the type of man who allows love to. Come slowly and stay if this story touched you. Please subscribe, like, and comment. There are more fireside tales on there,